welcome to my channel. If you enjoy this story, don't forget to subscribe and like. The Korrath black market was a festering swamp of chaos, where the feeble glow of plasma lamps barely illuminated the twisted faces of galactic species. Rickety stalls peddled everything from banned weapons to living creatures, all priced in desperation. The acrid stench of burnt metal mingled with the shouts of haggling traders, crafting a symphony of decay. Jack Carver stood silent in a corner, his sharp brown eyes scanning the crowd from beneath the low brim of his hat. A freelance pilot, he was a survivor teetering on the edge of law and anarchy, a veteran of the Belt Wars who now just wanted to make it through the day. He'd come to Korrath for a part for his ship, Starbreaker, but fate had other plans. "Final auction of the day!" roared Zychron, the auctioneer, his ashen-gray skin glinting under the harsh lights, his voice booming through rusted speakers. "A female warrior from the Tarynn system, rare, fierce, and tameable." The crowd snickered, their laughter a cruel echo. Jack took a sip from his flask, ready to turn away, but his gaze snapped to the stage as an iron door creaked open behind. She stepped from the shadows, her pale purple skin shimmering like starlight under the brutal lamps. Her long black hair, glossy as a midnight river, was bound by iron chains behind her back. But her eyes, crimson, glowing like embers, stopped Jack cold. They weren't the eyes of the defeated. They were fire, fierce and unyielding. "A Tarynn," Zychron continued, smirking to reveal jagged teeth. "Trained in the art of combat, but still, a touch defiant." The crowd laughed again, but the woman only clenched her fists, teeth grinding, her gaze slicing through them like a blade. A hulking Galthor merchant, tentacles coiling around his neck, lumbered onto the stage. "Let me inspect the goods," he growled, his rasping voice thick with greed, a tentacle reaching for her face. What happened next silenced the market. She spun, lightning fast, and sank her teeth into the tentacle. A piercing shriek echoed as green blood sprayed, the Galthor staggering back, howling. "This beast! It bit me!" The crowd erupted, jeers mixing with savage laughter. Zychron's hand lashed out, striking her to the floor, purple blood trickling from her lip. "Savage!" he snarled, then turned to the stunned crowd. "My apologies, honored guests. Clearly, this one needs more education." A voice from the back shouted. "Toss it to the beast's pits. Not worth a credit." Zychron's smirk returned, signaling two guards to drag her away. But before they could act, Jack found himself stepping forward, his voice cutting through the din. "I'll buy her," he said, tossing a credit chip onto the stage. The market fell silent, as if the air had been sucked out. Zychron blinked his 4 eyes, caught off guard. "What did you say?" "I said I'll buy her," Jack repeated, his voice calm but sharp as a knife. "Minimum price, right?" Zychron hissed, clearly displeased at losing the chance to see her torn apart in the pits. "Damaged goods, human. Market rules are clear, but don't blame me when it slits your throat." Jack climbed the stage, his eyes meeting hers as a guard roughly yanked her to her feet. There was no gratitude in those crimson eyes, only cold wariness. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice low and cutting, like wind over jagged cliffs. "A ship cleaner," Jack replied, the corner of his mouth twitching. "Starbreaker's filthy, and my crew's lazy as hell." She blinked, clearly unprepared for that answer. "Kill me instead," she said. "I'm no one's pet." Jack shrugged. "Don't need a pet. Just someone who'll work." He turned to Zychron. "We done?" The auctioneer tossed him a control chip, eyes blazing. "The collar, shock, track, kill. Use it freely." Jack pocketed the chip without a glance and gestured for her to follow. As they left the market, dozens of eyes clung to his back, like wolves stalking prey. "What's your name?" he asked, not looking back, his steps steady through the dark alleys. A pause, then her voice, soft but resolute. "Sylra. Jack Carver, Captain of Starbreaker." "Human?" she asked, her tone unclear. Disdain or curiosity? "Still breathing, still human," he replied, pausing at a stall to buy a gray cloak, tossing it to her. "Put it on. Korrath's not kind to your kind." Sylra caught it but didn't wear it, her eyes probing him. Why by me? Jack weighed the question, hands in his coat pockets. Maybe it was her defiant gaze, a flame that wouldn't die. Maybe he was just tired of watching the weak get crushed. Call it a bet with fate, he said finally, his voice light but firm. Now put the cloak on, unless you want attention. Sylra hesitated, then draped it over her shoulders, pulling the hood to hide her black hair. I belong to no one, she said softly, almost a whisper. Not you. Not anyone. Jack nodded, his gaze flicking to her before moving on. Got it. But let others think otherwise, at least until we're out of this cesspool. As they neared the spaceport, Jack felt the tension in Sylra's every step. He wondered if he'd just made a colossal mistake. His crew wouldn't be happy. But one glance at the fire in her crimson eyes, and he knew there was no turning back. Korrath's spaceport was a labyrinth of rusted docks, where the roar of engines mixed with the shouts of pilots and smugglers. Starbreaker sat in a far corner, its scarred hull exuding the grit of an old warrior, its angular lines like a predator poised to strike. Sylra walked beside Jack, her steps rigid, her crimson eyes darting back, as if calculating the moment to bolt. Jack noticed but said nothing. He'd been in her shoes, cornered, unsure who to trust. They just entered a narrow alley between two warehouses, where light was a faint smear from distant street lamps, when Sylra made her move. 1 second she was beside him, the next she was sprinting, her black hair streaming like a raven's wings. Damn it! Jack muttered, giving chase. He wove through a crowd of aliens, dodging startled traders, keeping her cloaked figure in sight. She was fast, faster than he'd expected, slipping through gaps between stalls that his broader frame struggled to navigate. The chase led deep into Korrath's slums, where light faded and the stench of burnt metal choked the air. Alleys grew claustrophobic, walls encrusted with moss and ship wreckage. Jack caught Sylra's black hair vanishing around the corner. He followed, only to find himself in a dead end, empty save for a pile of rusted crates. Clever, he whispered, scanning the walls. Movement above caught his eye. Sylra was scaling a ventilation pipe, her hands gripping like claws, her body fluid as a panther's. You're asking for trouble, Jack called up, his voice just loud enough for her. Korrath's no place for a loner. Sylra paused, looking down, her crimson eyes flashing in the dark. I've survived worse than this, she replied, her voice steady but tinged with exhaustion. Sure, Jack said, spreading his arms like an invitation. But why suffer when you don't have to? I'm offering a way off this junk heap. Food, shelter, in exchange for some ship chores. Sylra frowned, her eyes searching him. For my freedom? Or my body? Jack shook his head, his gaze frank. Just work. You're wrong about the rest. His sincerity made her hesitate, her hands still gripping the pipe. Then a piercing screech erupted from the rooftop above. A winged creature, claws sharp as razors, dove at Sylra's neck. Jack drew his pistol in a blur, a plasma shot hitting true, the beast crashing to the ground, black blood pooling on the stone. Scavenger bird, Jack explained, holstering his gun, his voice calm but alert. They hunt in packs. As if on cue, more screeches echoed, shadows of other creatures flitting past the dim lights. Sylra glanced up, then back at Jack, her crimson eyes weighing him. With a graceful move, she leapt down, landing lightly beside him in a crouch. Fine, she said, standing, her gaze still wary. But I owe you nothing. Jack nodded, his lip twitching. Let's move before they swarm. They hurried through the alleys, Jack leading with confident strides, as if he knew every dark corner of Korrath by heart. Sylra kept her distance, no longer planning to flee, her eyes scanning the crowd like a warrior ready for battle. Your aim, she said suddenly, her voice low. Precise. Veteran? She asked, her gaze sliding over him. Jack's lip curled, his eyes distant. Alliance Navy, Belt Wars. Old habits die hard. Sylra studied him closer, as if reassessing. Humans are known for fighting. Brutal, but effective. Brutal? Jack gave a dry laugh, his pace steady. Most just call me a pain in the ass. She didn't reply, but her crimson eyes softened, as if an invisible wall between them began to crack. As they neared the spaceport, Starbreaker came into view, a weathered but formidable ship, its sharp lines like a predator's. That's your ship? Sylra asked, surprise creeping into her voice. Don't let looks fool you, Jack replied, his eyes tracing the hull with quiet pride. It'll get us through hell. But as they approached the dock, an explosion rocked the port. The crowd panicked, black smoke billowing from a nearby warehouse, screams echoing. Jack pulled Sylra behind a stack of metal crates, his eyes scanning, hand tight on his pistol. Not an accident, he muttered, voice low. A squad of mercenaries in Galthor armor, tentacle emblems etched on their chests, emerged from the smoke, weapons raised, eyes hunting the crowd. Rykar Vonn, Sylra whispered, her voice trembling, not with fear, but rage. He didn't wait for the auction to end. He wants me now. Jack gripped his pistol, his eyes icy. He'll be disappointed. He signaled Sylra to stay low, leading her through narrow paths, dodging the mercenaries' gazes. The heavy clank of armored boots echoed behind, closing in with every second. Jack guided Sylra through the maze of Korrath's spaceport, his heart pounding as they slipped down side passages, shadows clinging to their steps. The stench of burned metal mixed with smoke from the distant explosion, the crowd's screams slicing the air like knives. Galthor mercenaries, their armor glinting under the lights, lurked at every turn. Jack pulled Sylra low, scrambling over rusted crates, her crimson eyes flashing with brief panic before hardening into resolve. They slid into Starbreaker's cargo bay just as the hatch slammed shut, the clank of mercenary armor echoing outside like a warning. Inside the cargo bay, the air was thick, taut as a breaking string. Flickering plasma lights cast shadows over metal crates, warped shapes like stalking beasts. The crew had gathered, their eyes locked on Jack and Sylra, cold and unwelcoming, like blades poised to strike. Lena, the red-haired engineer, stood with arms crossed, her eyes sharp as swords, a pistol peeking from her coat like a silent threat. Gorv, the massive Draken warrior, his curved horns quivering, from muscled arms clenched, blocked the way like a living wall. The Valari twins, Vin and Vara, their silver eyes quiet but piercing, stood in a corner, as if reading the stranger's mind. Kale, the tech specialist, appeared via hologram from the control room, his metallic eyes glinting, spinning as if analyzing every breath. "What's this, Captain?" Gorv roared, his voice like thunder, one arm pointing at Sylra, claws flashing. "A Tarynn? They're trouble, a blade in the dark." His tone mixed contempt with fear, as if Sylra were a flame that could burn them all. Lena smirked, her hand resting on her pistol, her gaze raking Sylra like a flawed commodity. "Tarynn or not, she's a liability," she said, her voice icy, though her eyes betrayed a flicker of worry. "The port just blew up. We don't need another mouth to feed, especially one dragging trouble." Jack felt the tension crush his chest, but he stood tall, stepping in front of Sylra, his brown eyes locking onto the crew. "Sylra," he introduced, his voice calm but sharp as a freshly honed blade. "She's here to work on the ship. My call." Inside, he knew this choice could turn the crew against him, but Sylra's crimson eyes at the market, that unyielding fire, still burned in his mind. Sylra didn't back down, stepping forward, her crimson gaze meeting Gorv's without flinching. "I'm not here to cause trouble," she said, her voice low, hard as steel, but trembling with the echo of past betrayals. "I'll prove my worth." Gorv scoffed, his horns quivering, his voice dripping with mockery. "Prove? A Tarynn? She'll slit my throat in my sleep." Lena tilted her head, her eyes glinting with suspicion. "She bit off a Galthor's tentacle at the market." "Sounds like trouble, Captain." Jack's brow furrowed, unease rising. "News travels fast," he said, his voice low, masking a spark of worry. Kale's hologram flickered on the wall, his metallic voice cutting through. "Faster than you think, Captain," he said, his eyes spinning like data scanners. The Gauthor Rykar Vonn, arms dealer in the outer belt. He's put a 60,000 credit bounty on the Tarynn, dead or alive. 40,000 for the human who interfered, you, Jack. Rykar's image appeared, tentacles coiled around his neck, eyes blazing, his voice roaring about stolen property. Jack's blood heated, not just from the bounty but from the way Sylra's eyes darkened, as if old scars were reopening. Gorv spun on Jack, furious, his massive arm pointing at Sylra. See? She's a ticking bomb! Lena nodded, her hand still on her pistol. Drop her at the port. Let her fend for herself. Vin and Vara exchanged glances, their silver eyes silent but heavy, as if weighing the crew's fate. Jack stepped forward, his eyes cold as steel, though a flicker of doubt gnawed at him. Was Sylra worth risking the crew? No one's turning her over, he said, each word heavy as lead, his gaze sweeping the crew, daring defiance. Anyone disagrees, take your share and leave the ship. Now. The air grew stifling, the crew's eyes wavering between challenge and hesitation. Gorv clenched his four fists, horns trembling, but stayed silent. Lena frowned, her gaze shifting from Jack to Sylra, as if weighing the cost of loyalty. Vin's voice, soft as a breeze, broke the silence. The captain's never led us wrong, he said, his silver eyes meeting Jack's with fragile trust. If he trusts her, I'll give her a chance. Vara nodded faintly, her eyes agreeing. Kale, via hologram, added, Taryn's sense energy. Could be useful, if she doesn't betray us. His tone was flat, but Jack sensed tacit support. Thanks, Vin, Jack said, his eyes softening, though his heart still raced. Kale, prep for launch. Lena, check the perimeter. Gorv, secure the cargo. We're leaving Korrath in 10. The crew dispersed, Gorv muttering, his forearms shoving crates, the clank of metal like a protest. Lena shot Sylra one last suspicious glance before leaving. Jack turned to Sylra, her eyes now holding a spark of curiosity, as if seeing him through a new lens. You didn't have to defend me, she said softly, almost a whisper, her crimson eyes glinting with gratitude and wariness. The crew doesn't want me. Jack shrugged, his lip twitching, a smile hiding the pressure in his chest. I hate seeing Rykar win. And you're worth the gamble. Sylra tilted her head, her eyes probing, searching for cracks in his words. You don't know me, she said, her voice low, carrying old wounds. I could be trouble, like they say. Jack stepped closer, his gaze locking onto hers, unwavering. I know enough. Your eyes at the market, that fire isn't a traitor's. Prove me right. The engines roared, shaking the floor like Starbreaker's heartbeat. Jack led Sylra through the corridor, metal walls echoing, reflecting dim light. They stopped at a small, clean cabin with a single bunk, a locker, and a tidy hygiene nook. Rest here, Jack said, gesturing inside. Clothes in the locker. When you're ready, meet me on the bridge. He paused at the door, his eyes stern, his heart heavy. Sylra, don't make me regret this. Her crimson eyes met his, a spark flaring, not defiance, but a silent vow, like a flame that wouldn't fade. I won't, she replied, her voice firm, carrying deep resolve. Jack nodded, turning away, but the ship's alarms screamed, red lights flashing wildly. Kale's hologram appeared on the wall, his metallic eyes spinning. Captain, unknown signal in the cargo bay. A tracking device. Rykar knows we're here. Jack sprinted to the bridge, heart pounding, blood surging. Lena appeared, pistol drawn, her eyes icy. Is Sylra involved? She asked, her voice laced with suspicion, like a blade at the throat. She's the only new variable. Jack shook his head, his gaze hard, but his heart wavered. Check the cargo bay. Don't jump to conclusions. But in his mind, a question cut like a knife. Was his faith in Sylra, that unyielding fire, right, or had he just dragged the crew into Rykar's inferno? Starbreaker tore through Korrath's smoke-choked sky, its engines roaring like a feral beast, shaking the bridge's floor. Jack gripped the controls, heart pounding, eyes glued to the radar screen where red blips flickered like predators' eyes, closing in. Each blip was a Galthor ship, carrying Rykar Vonn's promise, blood and fire. Kale, found the tracker yet? He asked, voice taut but steady, like a blade held to a throat yet honed sharp. Scanning, Kale replied via hologram, his metallic eyes spinning, glinting as if prying secrets from the data. Bigger problem. 3 Galthor ships just launched from the port. Heavy weapons, high speed. Jack's grip tightened, pressure crushing his chest. Lena, activate shields, he ordered, weaving the ship through cosmic dust clouds, the faint stars outside a reminder of death's proximity. Vin, plot a hyperspace jump. Fast. Sylra appeared on the bridge, her form-fitting flight suit sleek but unable to hide her crimson eyes sharp as freshly forged blades. She stepped forward, shoulders squared, voice firm. I can help. But before Jack could respond, Gorv, checking the cannon systems, roared, his horns quivering. Help? She's probably Rykar's spy. He jabbed a finger at Sylra, his forearms clenched, as if ready to crush her. Who planted the tracker if not her? His voice wasn't just angry, it carried fear, the dread that a stranger could drag them all into the abyss. Sylra didn't flinch, her crimson eyes locking onto Gorv's, a flame facing a storm. I sense vibrations in the ship, she said, voice low, confident, but trembling under the weight of accusation. The tracker's in the engine bay, near the power core. Tarynn's feel electromagnetic waves. I know where it is. Jack looked at her, his heart wavering between trust and doubt. Her defiant gaze at the market, unyielding, blazing, still haunted him, but the tracker threatened to tear Starbreaker apart. Gorv, he said, voice hard, brooking no argument. Take her to the engine bay. If she's right, follow her lead. Gorv muttered, horns shaking, eyes sparking, but led Sylra away, his forearms taut with restrained rage. Lena turned to Jack, brow furrowed, voice icy. Captain, you really trust her? We're being hunted, and she's the only variable. Her eyes held suspicion laced with worry for the crew. Jack kept his gaze on the radar, voice low. I trust my instincts. And we need every edge. In the engine bay, the power core's glow lit Sylra's purple skin, shimmering like pearl in the dark. She placed a hand on the core, eyes closed, fingers gliding as if reading an unseen hymn. Her heart raced, not just from danger but from Gorv's suspicious glare, like a blade at her back. Here, she said, pointing to a small device wired to a conduit, its red light pulsing like a traitor's heartbeat. Gorv detached it, scanning it, his voice reluctant. Military-grade tracker. She's right. Sylra opened her eyes, tension in her gaze, sweat beading on her brow. It's not just a tracker. It's rigged to self-destruct. If not disarmed correctly, the core will blow, wiping out the ship. Gorv froze, his eyes shifting from hostility to stunned respect. You know how to disarm it? Sylra nodded, hands moving swiftly, severing circuits with a warrior's precision, forged in fire. The device went dark, its red light dead. Done, she said, wiping sweat, her purple skin glowing under the core's light. Gorv stared, voice low, grudgingly impressed. Not bad, Tarynn. Sylra nodded faintly, eyes wary, her heart heavy with the knowledge she wasn't yet trusted. On the bridge, Kale's voice crackled through comms. Trackers disabled, but the Galthors are still closing. They're in firing range. An explosion rocked Starbreaker, shields flaring, absorbing the hit. Jack held the controls, weaving through plasma barrages. Then, jump ready? He asked, voice taut as a bowstring. 2 minutes. Vin replied, fingers dancing over the console, silver eyes gleaming with focus. We don't have 2 minutes. Lena snapped, firing plasma cannons, their bursts slicing the cosmic dark. Sylra returned to the bridge, eyes tense but blazing with resolve. There's another device, she said, voice urgent. In the navigation system. It's locking our jump. If we don't remove it, we can't hyperspace. Jack cursed, eyes scanning the radar, Galthor blips like starving wolves. His heart pounded, but Sylra's unquenchable fire made him bet again. Can you remove it? He asked, gaze locked on her. Sylra nodded, voice firm. It'll take time. And the ship needs to stay steady. Jack turned to the crew. Lena, Vin, hold shields and cannons. I'll keep us stable. Sylra, do it. Sylra dove to the console, hands flying over controls, crimson eyes focused like a warrior facing death. The ship shuddered, Galthor plasma striking true, bridge lights flickering. Shields at 20%. Lena shouted, firing a salvo, forcing an enemy ship to veer. 30 seconds. Sylra said, voice strained, hands relentless, sweat rolling down her brow. Her heart thundered, not just from danger but from knowing the crew's fate rested in her hands. A massive blast tilted the bridge, Jack gripping the controls, muscles taut. Shields at 10%. Lena yelled, panic creeping in. Done! Sylra shouted, yanking the device free, its red light dying. The hyperspace route lit up on the screen. Jump now! Jack ordered, pulling the lever. Stars stretched into streaks, Starbreaker vanishing into hyperspace, leaving the Galthor ships in cosmic dust. The bridge fell quiet, relieved breaths mingling with the hum of engines. Jack turned to Sylra, his eyes mixing admiration with relief. You just saved the ship, he said, voice low, heart still racing with adrenaline. Sylra shrugged, a faint smile hiding exhaustion. I did what needed doing, she said, but her crimson eyes gleamed, a flame weathering a storm. Lena glanced at Sylra, her gaze less cold but still guarded. Maybe you're not as useless as I thought, she said grudgingly, turning away before Sylra could reply. Jack sensed the crew's dynamic shift, like a wall of doubt cracking but not yet crumbling. He looked at Sylra, her eyes meeting his, carrying a silent vow. But in his mind, a question lingered. Rykar wasn't done, and Sylra's fire, though it saved them today, might be the beacon that guided them or the spark that burned them all. Starbreaker emerged in the amethyst expanse, a nebula blazing like a cosmic painting, swirls of purple and gold churning like fire laced with smoke. But its beauty was a double-edged blade, hiding lethal radiation ready to corrode a ship's systems in days. On the bridge, Jack stood firm, his brown eyes scanning the nebula's display, heart racing not just from danger but from the shimmering light reflected in Sylra's eyes as she stood by the observation window. Radiation's higher than expected, Kale reported via hologram, his metallic eyes spinning, voice flat but edged with warning. Systems can handle 36 hours. After that, life support fails. Jack nodded, eyes fixed on the screen, where purple energy tendrils swirled like a silent tempest. Enough to lose Rykar. Cut power, run essentials only. The crew dispersed, footsteps echoing on the metal floor, leaving Jack and Sylra in the bridge's quiet. She stood there, crimson eyes mirroring the nebula's glow, a flame burning in the cosmic void. Beautiful, she whispered, her voice soft, carrying deep nostalgia, as if touching a lost memory. On Tarynn, we called places like this star gardens, where the universe's souls are reborn. Jack watched her, the nebula's light making her pale purple skin shimmer like pearl under moonlight. His heart stirred, not just from her words but from the rare fragility in her voice. Poetic, for a people known for fighting, he said, voice light, teasing to mask the strange warmth in his chest. Sylra smiled, her lip curling, crimson eyes twinkling like stars. We contain multitudes, Jack. Like humans. Their eyes met, an electric current passing between them, thickening the air like an unplayed melody. Jack's heart quickened, an unfamiliar rhythm. He cleared his throat, turning away, struggling to keep his voice steady. We should check the engine bay. Radiation might affect the core. I'll come, Sylra said instantly, following, her voice firm but eyes holding a spark of curiosity. I'll sense if something's off. They left the bridge, moving through dimly lit metal corridors, lights faint from power-saving mode. In the engine bay, the power core's glow cast long shadows, like the cosmic souls Sylra spoke of. She placed a hand on the core, eyes closed, fingers gliding as if communing with the machine. Her heart raced, not just from the task but from the strange closeness to Jack, whose brown eyes watched intently. There's an anomaly, Sylra said, opening her eyes, voice focused but tinged with worry. Radiation's disrupting the energy grid. Jack stepped to the console, checking data, brow furrowing. Can we compensate? Yes, but it needs manual tuning, she replied, crimson eyes locking onto his, a silent vow. Requires precision. They worked side by side, shoulders brushing, hands grazing over controls, each touch lingering longer than needed, as if both craved the moment's wait. The air grew heavy, not with dangerous tension but something deeper, unnamed. The crew's starting to accept me, Sylra said, breaking the silence, her voice soft, probing. Even Lena didn't glare when I passed. Jack smiled, hands still on the console, eyes softening. They respect skill. You've got plenty. Sylra tilted her head, crimson eyes studying him, glowing like embers. Is that what you respect, Jack? Skill? The question carried a deeper edge, an invitation to cross an invisible line. Jack stepped closer, catching her scent, smoke and wildflowers, untamed and alluring. Skill, courage, wits. He paused, voice low, eyes unwavering. And the ability to bite a tentacle when it counts. Sylra laughed, the sound warm, echoing in the engine bay, like light-piercing shadow. The ship lurched violently, throwing them together. Jack caught Sylra, hands on her waist, feeling the strength beneath her purple skin, his heart racing, not just from the jolt. Lights flickered, then dimmed. Captain, to the bridge! Cale's voice crackled through comms, urgent, shattering the moment. Jack released Sylra, his hands lingering a second too long, their eyes meeting, an unspoken promise. Duty calls, he said, voice hoarse, hiding the tremor within. On the bridge, the main screen showed a radiation storm, purple energy tendrils swirling like a cosmic maelstrom, beautiful but deadly. It's frying navigation, Cale reported, voice tense, metallic eyes spinning. Without a fix, we're blind. One wrong move, the radiation tears us apart. Jack gripped the railing, eyes sweeping the crew, heart heavy. Options? Sylra stepped forward, crimson eyes blazing with unshakable confidence, like a flame no storm could quench. I can guide us, she said, voice firm but laced with worry, knowing the crew's doubt. Tarynn sense energy flows. This nebula's like a river. I know the safe paths, the deadly ones. Korrath roared, horns quivering, eyes sparking. Trust her? She could lead us into a trap. Lena crossed her arms, eyes glinting with suspicion, but stayed silent, as if waiting for Sylra to prove herself. Jack looked at Sylra, seeing the unyielding fire in her eyes, his heart beating again. You take the helm, he said, voice hard, no room for debate. Korrath assist. Vin, monitor radiation data. Korrath muttered, forearms clenching, but stepped aside. Sylra gripped the controls, hands moving with born instinct, as if made to lead. Starbreaker glided through radiation currents, dodging lethal energy vortices, each move like her heartbeat. The bridge's air was taut, every eye on the screen, breaths held. There, Sylra said after minutes, voice calm but certain, pointing to a calm zone on the screen. That area is stable. Lower radiation. Cale checked, his metallic eyes flashing. She's right. Radiation's down 25%. We're safe, for now. Relieved sighs echoed, like a weight lifting. Jack placed a hand on Sylra's shoulder, squeezing lightly, his eyes brimming with admiration. Well done, he whispered, just for her, his heart warming with vindicated trust. Sylra turned, crimson eyes meeting his, a faint smile flickering, like a star's twinkle. I don't just bite tentacles, she teased, voice proud. Lena, nearby, smirked. Maybe she's not half bad, she muttered, her gaze less icy, then turned away. But the relief dissolved fast. Cale spun back, voice tense. Captain, we need repairs. Radiation damaged shields and navigation. Without fixes, we won't survive the next hit. Jack nodded, eyes hardening, a warrior ready. Vortex station's the closest option. But it's a trade hub, Rykar might have eyes there. Lena stepped forward, eyes glinting, voice confident. Or he won't expect us to dare. I've got contacts at Vortex. They'll deliver parts, no questions. Jack waited, eyes flicking to Sylra, then nodded. Fine. Set course for Vortex. But in his heart, a question cut like a blade. Had the amethyst expanse hidden them from Rykar, or merely delayed his axe? And Sylra, the guiding flame, would she be their salvation or the storm that consumed Starbreaker? Starbreaker emerged from the amethyst expanse into open space, where Vortex Station loomed like a colossal floating city, its gleaming metal modules linked by shimmering light bridges. It was the trade heart of the Outer Belt, where merchants, mercenaries, and spies from across the galaxy bartered everything from ship parts to deadly secrets. But beneath its glitz, the station was a den of bounty hunters, ready to sell lives for a handful of credits. Jack stood on the bridge, brown eyes cold, scanning the station's display, heart pounding with the threat's proximity. Risky, he said, voice low, like a warrior before battle. But we need parts. Lena, contact your source. Arrange pickup at Dock 92, away from the main hub. Done, Lena replied, fingers flying over the console, her red hair glinting with confidence. They'll meet us in 3 hours. Jack nodded, turning to Sylra, who stood by the observation window, the station's light catching her hooded cloak. Her purple skin was disguised with cosmetics Lena provided, dulled to pale gray to blend with the multi-species crowd. Her black hair hid beneath the hood, but her crimson eyes betrayed a flicker of unease. You're with me and Lena, Jack said, voice firm. But stay low. You stand out. Sylra nodded, eyes wavering, like a warrior on a razor's edge. Understood. They left Starbreaker, stepping into Vortex Station's crowded corridors, where hundreds of beings jostled, stunted merchants hawking wares, towering warriors glaring, voices a chaotic tide. Sylra kept her head down, cloak tight, but Jack saw her hand clench the fabric, as if suppressing a tremble. Easy, he whispered, walking close, his shoulder brushing hers, offering quiet comfort. Grab the parts, then we're gone. They wove through the bustling market, strange spices mingling with shouts, neon lights flashing. A massive news screen on the wall suddenly displayed Rykar Vonn, tentacles coiled tight around his neck, eyes blazing like furnaces. The Tarynn thief and her humans stole my property, he roared, his voice booming through speakers sharp as a blade. Bounty raised, 80,000 credits for the Tarynn, 50,000 for the human. The crowd buzzed, eyes darting like wolves scenting blood. Sylra stiffened, crimson eyes flashing under her hood, voice a trembling whisper of rage. Thief? I only took my freedom. Lena, behind, said dryly. And a tentacle. Jack signaled silence, eyes sharp, scanning as station patrols passed, their gazes like laser sweeps. They pressed on to the tech district, a maze of shops brimming with ship parts, weapons, and odd devices. Lena led them to a small store, its windows shuttered, no sign. Wait here, she said, slipping inside with a lanky Tarynn, a metal case glinting in his hand. Jack and Sylra leaned against the wall outside, eyes sweeping the crowd, the air heavy as before a storm. You okay? Jack asked softly, seeing Sylra's hand tremble despite her efforts. She nodded, voice low, pulling memories from a deep well. This place, it reminds me of Tarynn, before it fell. The markets, the laughter, the life. Her voice broke, crimson eyes clouding, as if seeing through a haze of pain. Jack wanted to touch her, to ask about those invisible scars, but Lena emerged, the Tarynn behind, case in hand. Got everything, Lena said, voice urgent. Let's move. They headed back to the main corridor, but Jack froze, his warrior instincts screaming. 3 figures glided through the crowd, light armor glinting, eyes scanning like hunters. Bounty hunters, he whispered, grabbing Sylra's hand, pulling her into a narrow side passage, the air thick with machine oil. Lena followed, her hand hiding a pistol under her coat. Split up, Jack said fast, eyes sharp. Lena, get the parts to the ship. Sylra, stay with me. Lena nodded, eyes tense but smirking. Don't die. Paperwork's a pain. She vanished around a corner, her red hair flashing like flame. Jack pulled Sylra into a shadowed nook behind an ad panel, dim light cloaking them. We need to blend, he whispered, then, without warning, pulled her close, his lips meeting hers in a deep, sudden kiss. Sylra froze, crimson eyes wide, but then she melted into it, hands wrapping around his neck, body pressing close, as if anchoring herself in a storm. The kiss wasn't just cover, it was a spark, igniting Jack's chest, his heart pounding. The bounty hunters passed, their eyes sliding over the embracing couple, unsuspecting. When they were gone, Jack pulled back, breath quick, brown eyes locked on her. "Sorry," he said, voice hoarse, but his heart knew it was a lie. Sylra's skin shimmered through the cosmetics, faint patterns blooming on her cheeks, like secrets unveiled by light. "Human evasion tactics, effective," she whispered, crimson eyes glinting, half embarrassed, half defiant. An explosion rocked the main corridor, the station's alarms blaring, red lights flashing. The crowd panicked, screams tearing the air. Jack grabbed Sylra's hand, pulling her into the shadows, heart racing. A nearby screen showed Rykar Vonn, tentacles clutching a glowing device. "Tarynn bioscanner," Sylra whispered, voice laced with horror, crimson eyes darkening. "It detects my energy even disguised." Jack squeezed her hand, eyes icy, a warrior facing death. "No more running. Now we fight." Sylra gripped his hand, crimson eyes blazing, voice steady but trembling, as if pulling a secret from her core. "There's something I haven't told you, Jack. I'm not just a Tarynn warrior. I'm an energy weapons engineer. Rykar wants my tech, a device that disables warships remotely." Jack froze, eyes locked on her, heart torn between awe and unease. "You've carried that secret this whole time?" Sylra nodded, crimson eyes raw with pain, like confessing a sin. "I trusted no one. Tarynn was destroyed because of me, because of this tech. But now I trust you." Her words cut like a blade, both agonizing and sincere, making Jack feel the weight of responsibility heavier than ever. He took a deep breath, nodding. "Then we use your secret against him." He tapped his comms, voice sharp. "Kale, I need a big distraction in the trade district. Draw Rykar away." Kale's voice came through, calm but edged. "Understood. Triggering fire suppression in 30 seconds. Be ready to run." Jack turned to Sylra, eyes resolute, like a warrior before the final stand. "Ready?" She nodded, crimson eyes blazing, an unquenchable flame. "Ready." But in her heart, fear lingered. Her revealed secret could save them, or drag Starbreaker into the inferno Rykar swore to unleash. Starbreaker hurtled into hyperspace, stars stretching into streaks of light, leaving Vortex Station and its chaos behind. On the bridge, the air remained heavy, like a blade still lodged in a wound. Jack stood firm, his brown eyes sweeping over the crew, heart pounding with adrenaline and a lingering question. Rykar had lost this round, but he wouldn't stop. Sylra sat at the console, crimson eyes focused, the faint patterns on her purple skin shimmering as stress slowly faded. Lena, leaning against the wall, cleaned her pistol, her gaze less icy as it flicked to Sylra. Gorv, horns faintly quivering, muttered but without hostility. The Valari twins, Vin Vara, their silver eyes quiet, observed as always. Kale, via hologram, spun his metallic eyes, voice flat. Found a safe stop, an abandoned repair station in the Lyris system, 2 jumps away. No enemy signals in range. Jack nodded, voice low. Set course. We need to clear the magnetic mines before Rykar traces Sylra's decoy signal. He turned to her, his eyes holding unmasked admiration. You saved the crew again. That decoy signal, not everyone could pull it off. Sylra shrugged, her lip curling, but her crimson eyes betrayed a flicker of exhaustion. Tarynn tech, she said, voice soft, masking a deeper pain. I learned it to protect, not to flee. Lena smirked, holstering her pistol. Protect or flee, you did good. Maybe I was wrong calling you a liability. Her words were dry, but a far cry from her earlier glares. Gorv growled softly, forearms crossing. Don't get cocky, Tarynn. Rykar's coming back, and he's not stupid. Sylra met his gaze, unflinching. I know. He's never stupid, but I won't let him win. Jack sensed the crew's dynamic shift, The wall of doubt had cracked, though not yet fallen. He stepped closer to Sylra, voice low, just for her. You okay? After everything, and Rykar? Her eyes met his, crimson but softer, like a flame sheltered from the wind. I'm okay, she said, voice faintly trembling. But facing him, it brings back Tarynn, what I lost. He doesn't just want the tech. He wants to destroy me. Jack placed a hand on her shoulder, squeezing gently, feeling the strength beneath her purple skin. He can't break you. Not with this crew behind you. Sylra gave a faint smile, her eyes twinkling like stars in the dark. Thank you, Jack. The moment stretched, an invisible thread tightening between them, until Kale interrupted via hologram. We've reached Lyrith. Repair station ahead, no biosigns or enemy signals. Jack nodded, eyes sharpening. Prep the demon in gear. Lena, Sylra, I need you in the tech bay. Gorv, sweep the perimeter. Then, Vara, keep the ship steady. Starbreaker touched down on the abandoned repair station, a rusted metal husk floating in space, surrounded by debris and shadow. The ship's power core cast light on scarred walls, shadows twisting like forgotten ghosts. In the tech bay, Sylra and Lena worked, eyes focused, hands moving swiftly over demoning equipment. Sylra used her Tarynn senses, detecting the mine's frequencies, while Lena guided a robotic arm to disarm them. These mines are sophisticated, Sylra said, voice taut, patterns on her skin flaring. Rykar doesn't want us alive. Lena glanced at her, a rare glint of respect in her eyes. He doesn't know how stubborn you are. Sylra gave a soft laugh, light as a breeze, but stayed focused. After tense minutes, the robotic arm removed the first mine, sealing it in an isolation case. One down, 2 to go, Lena said, wiping sweat. But the ship's alarm screamed, red lights flashing. Kale's voice crackled through comms. Enemy signals. 3 Galthor ships just appeared, 5,000 clicks out and closing fast. On the bridge, Jack cursed, hands tightening on the controls. Rykar traced the decoy faster than I thought. He tapped comms. Sylra, Lena, speed up the demoning. We need to jump as soon as you're done. In the tech bay, Sylra and Lena pushed harder, hands flying, sweat rolling. Second mine, done. Sylra shouted as the robotic arm secured it. But the final mine was trickier, rigged with a double lock circuit. It's got a self-trigger if we disarm it wrong, Sylra said, voice trembling, crimson eyes locked in absolute focus. On the bridge, Kale reported. Galthor's in firing range. Shields up, but they won't hold long. An explosion rocked Starbreaker, plasma flaring outside the viewport. Jack held the controls, weaving through barrages. Then prep jump coordinates, he ordered, voice sharp. Then type swiftly, silver eyes gleaming. Need 90 seconds. Jack cursed. We don't have 90 seconds. In the tech bay, Sylra took a deep breath, hands moving like a surgeon's, severing the final mine's circuits. Done, she shouted, as the mine was secured in the isolation case. Lena clapped her shoulder, her rare smile flashing. Nice work, Tarynn. They raced to the bridge, where Jack wrestled to keep the ship intact. Mines cleared, Sylra reported, diving to the console, checking systems. We're jump ready. Jump now, Jack yelled, pulling the lever. Stars stretched, Starbreaker vanishing into hyperspace, leaving the Galthor ships and the repair station in cosmic dust. The bridge fell silent, relieved breaths mingling with engine hums. Jack turned to Sylra, eyes brimming with admiration and relief. You're my savior, he said, voice low, heart still racing from the brush with death. Sylra smiled, crimson eyes glinting, but shadowed with worry. I saved the ship, but Rykar won't stop. My tech, it's a curse. Jack stepped closer, eyes locked on hers. Not a curse. It's power, and you used it to save lives. I'm proud you're here. His words were earnest, like a breeze dispelling the darkness in her heart. Lena, nearby, smirked. All right, you two, enough mush. I need to check the shields. She turned away, but her eyes held a spark of amusement. Gorv growled softly. Tarynn, you're alright? But don't expect a hug. Sylra laughed, the sound light, like a beacon in the dark. But Kale cut in, voice tense. Captain, anomalous signal in the ship's data. An encrypted file, uploaded at Vortex. It's got Rykar's fingerprints. Jack stiffened, eyes icing over. Open it, Kale. We need to know what he left. Sylra stepped forward, crimson eyes darkening, as if sensing dread. In her heart, fear stirred. Her secret had saved them today, but Rykar was always a step ahead. What trap had he laid in the shadows this time? Starbreaker orbited a desolate planet, light from a distant sun glinting off its hull, turning it into a jewel in the cosmic dark. In the observation room, the crew gathered, eyes on Jack and Sylra, standing at the center, starlight from the vast viewport casting a halo around them. Gorv, as the eldest crew member, stood tall, horns faintly quivering, his deep voice resonating as he officiated a unique ritual, a fusion of Tarynn bonding customs and human wedding vows, a symbol of a bond defying all norms. Sylra wore a form-fitting Tarynn suit, her purple skin radiant with intricate patterns, like a star map reflecting joy and deep connection. Her crimson eyes sparkled, free of the fear and doubt that once haunted them. Jack, in simple pilot's gear, held her hand, his brown eyes warm, deep as the cosmos. I can't promise you the galaxy, he said, voice low, sincere, each word etched into the void. But I promise to stand by you, through radiation storms, enemy fleets, or when everything falls apart. Sylra smiled, crimson eyes blazing, a fire unbound. And I promise to be your flame, Jack, never fading, never yielding. She squeezed his hand, patterns on her skin flaring like living stars, drawing gasps from the room. Lena, beside Kale, whispered, her red hair glinting. Didn't think the captain could be tamed. Kale, metallic eyes spinning faintly, replied dryly. Not tamed. Matched. The crew's laughter broke the solemnity, blending with claps and Gorv's joyous roar. The ritual ended, and Vin and Vara, the silver-eyed Valari twins, stepped forward, offering Jack and Sylra a small object, a prismatic crystal, shimmering purple and gold, a symbol of unity. From us, Vin said, his voice soft, rare warmth breaking through. Sylra touched the crystal, crimson eyes glistening. Thank you, she said, voice trembling with emotion. Jack squeezed her hand, heart pounding, not just for the moment but for the journey that brought them here, from doubt and danger to an unconventional but unbreakable family. 3 months earlier, Sylra's weapons tech, the prize Rykar hunted with obsessive fury, had been repurposed by her into a tool for salvation. Starbreaker now bore the reputation of a cosmic rescue crew, saving stranded ships in radiation zones or battlefields. Their fame spread from the outer belt to distant stations. Rykar Vonn, who once vowed to tear them apart, now rotted behind bars. Evidence of his smuggling, somehow, reached the authorities, a gift from Kale, though his hologram only shrugged when asked. Data finds its own path, he said, metallic eyes glinting. The bounties on Jack and Sylra were lifted, but they knew the outer belt was never truly safe. New bounty hunters, old enemies, and the shadow of Tarynn tech still lurked. On the bridge, Jack and Sylra stood side by side, gazing at the stars, their light reflected in their eyes. You never tried to tame me, Sylra said, voice soft, her hand tight in his, patterns on her skin glowing like a vow. Jack smiled, brown eyes warm, as if shielding a galaxy. Because I know a flame doesn't need taming. It just needs to burn. Sylra leaned her head on his shoulder, feeling his warmth, her heart light, like finding a harbor after a storm. They stood in silence, Starbreaker's engines filling the void, a heartbeat for the ship that had become home. But the peace shattered when Kale appeared via hologram, voice tense. Captain, distress signal from a trade ship in the Dragon system. Radiation trap, no escape. Jack straightened, eyes icing over, a warrior reborn. Set course. Prep the rescue team. He turned to Sylra, a smile in his gaze. Ready, Flame? Sylra stood tall, crimson eyes blazing, patterns on her skin flaring like the cosmos. Always. She moved to the console, hands dancing over controls, ready to wield Tarynn tech to save lives. Lena strode onto the bridge, smirking. Diving into danger again. Typical us. Gorv growled, but his eyes shone with pride. Vin and Vara nodded, silver eyes gleaming, ready for any challenge. Starbreaker roared, engines flaring, surging toward the Dragon system. Stars streaked by, a reminder that the universe was vast and perilous, but with Jack, Sylra, and their crew, no darkness was unconquerable. There were the flame, the light, and the family, unyielding against any storm ahead.